Ms. Cadet, can you come back up, please? Thank you. Mr. Gaskins, do you have questions?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good afternoon, Shay.
Hi.
How are you today?
Great.
Rather be someplace else?
Yes.
I'd like to get some sense of your mother's character. Now, when you were born, your mother was married to your father.
Objection to formal question.
Uh, um,
The first paragraph.
I'm sorry?
To the first paragraph of the commentary.
The first statement?
Yes.
Sustained. To the question, overruled. Ladies and gentlemen, disregard the comment of the lawyer. It was not a question. It was not a question. It was a statement. Disregard that. Repeat your question.
Could I get some context from you about your mother's character?
Objection.
Sustained. The question is improper. Rephrase.
When you were born, your mother was married to Scott Elmer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, as the years as you were growing up, were you sometimes with your mother and sometimes with your father?
Yes.
And your father lives in New Mexico. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is that where he has lived all of your life?
Yes.
And your mother has lived in some different places, hasn't she?
Yes.
At one point, she lived in Texas,
Yes.
and that's where she was looking out for her mother. Is that correct?
My grandmother lived in Kirtland and in Bloomfield, New Mexico.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
My grandmother lived in Kirtland and Bloomfield, New Mexico. Whenever I was in junior high, my grandmother lived in our house in Texas after Nikki had passed away.
And did you live with your mother at various different times as you were growing up?
Yes.
And your mother was involved in a great deal of community activity.
Yes.
And one of the things that she was involved in was theater, teaching children.
Children's theater, yes.
Children's theater. You also were aware that she was a woman who was interested in work.
Yes.
She got a cosmetology license. Is that
Yes.
correct? Got a real estate license. Is that
Yes.
correct? She ran an art store in St. John. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you were in New York, she attended school, correct?
Yes.
Let's back up to the time that you and she were living together in St. John.
Okay.
Now, had you moved from New York to St. John?
No, I was living in New Mexico with my dad going to school.
Okay, so New York came after St. John.
It was before and after.
Okay. So in St. John's, you and your mother are living together.
Yes.
And did you have an apartment or
We did.
what were the arrangements?
We had an apartment.
And your mother ran the art store.
Yes.
And did you work in the art store too?
Yes.
At some point, Grant Hayes comes on the scene.
Yes.
Correct? Now, at that time, he was living in a shack on the beach, wasn't
I don't know exactly where it was, but basically it was a one-bedroom shack or a one-room shack.
he? And what he was doing was playing the guitar in nightclubs and restaurants, wherever he could get some business, playing the guitar and singing.
Yes.
He was a musician.
Yes.
Were you aware at that time that Grant was recording songs on disc?
At some point, yes.
And did you hear any of his songs while you were living in the Virgin Islands?
Yes, I did.
Did you hear him on disc and at the clubs where he was working?
Yes.
Did you perceive that Grant was making any money at what he was doing?
Not really.
And at some point, you realized that he and your mother had become involved with each other.
Yes.
And at that time, your mother, you were aware, were you not, that your mother had inherited some money when her husband, Mickey Smith, passed away.
Yes.
So you knew that, did you know how much she had?
No.
You just knew that she had enough money that you were able to live from.
Yes.
Did you perceive that Grant was moving himself in on her?
Yes and no. It was obvious that he didn't have money. My mom paid for everything.
And in other words, he, from the very beginning, was working his way in himself into a position where your mother was the one who was supporting.
Yes.
And this would have been when, approximately November of 2009?
We came back from a 2-week trip to New York in the end of October, so I'm going to say end of November, beginning of December.
You had mentioned that you, at some point, were helping Grant in the portion of the musical business of booking gigs for him.
Yes.
Is that something that started in New York?
Yes.
So you weren't doing that in the Virgin Islands?
No.
So approximately how long did your mother know Grant before your mother and you decided to move back to New York?
2 months, maybe.
And why were you moving back to New York?
I wanted to go to school in New York. I wanted to move back to New York. And my mom had recently broken up with a boyfriend who kind of went off the deep end whenever they broke up and was basically stalking my mom.
And so you and she moved back to New York at the December 31st, 2009?
Yes.
You're there for 2 weeks. January 15th, and Grant Page shows up on the doorstep.
The 16th, yes.
Did you expect him?
No. I didn't expect him to show up with 2 suitcases and moving in, that's for sure.
He had 2 suitcases with him, didn't
Mm-hmm.
he? Entire belongings.
Yep.
Now, at this point, you and your mother had moved into an apartment in New York City.
Yes, we were there for 7 days and we moved into our apartment.
When he shows up on the doorstep.
9 days later.
And the apartment was on the east side.
Yes, the Lower East Side.
How long after Grant arrived in New York did you start helping him book shows?
Within a month maybe.
Were you getting paid for it?
I had a place to live. I didn't pay rent. I was fed. I mean, my mom gave me money.
You didn't get any money from Grant, did you?
No, Grant didn't have any money.
Grant didn't come home and help pay any portion of the rent, did
No.
he? He didn't buy milk. He didn't buy bread. He didn't buy anything, did he?
No.
He was living off of your mother from the moment he moved in, wasn't
Yes.
Did you go with him to the places where the shows were booked?
Yes, I booked them.
And at some point, did you start to become aware of some of the characters that he was hanging out with?
Yes, I did.
Did you become concerned?
There were a number of times where I knew something was going on.
And when you say something, what do you mean?
I think he was using drugs.
And he was concealing that from you, wasn't he?
He acted like I was just a dumb kid and had no idea what was going on.
He mistreated you too.
I'm an adult. I can take it, but I told him whenever he married my mother that if he ever mistreated her, he had to deal with me.
How long were you there before Grant arranged for Little Grant to come to New York?
A month. Little Grant got there February 18th.
Did Grant tell you that Little Grant was coming for 3 days to do a diaper commercial?
I don't remember exactly. I remember there being something about Baby Gap being involved. Baby Gap, the clothing store, Baby Gap.
Now, how long was it, what was your understanding as to how long Little Grant would be visiting in New York?
2 weeks.
And how long did he stay?
Longer.
Were you aware that during that time that Grant and Laura were in a dispute about Grant still being in New York and not returning home?
I was told by Grant that Laura had asked if we could keep Little Grant longer.
Did you later learn that that was not true?
Through the grapevine.
And at some point you also learned that Laura had filed a lawsuit to try to correct what had happened.
Yes.
How long had you been living in New York when Grant and your mother were married?
We had been there, we got there in January and they were married April 19th.
2 months?
February, March, April. 3 months.
Were you aware that Grant's pitch to your mother was that they needed to be married so that it would give an appearance to their relationship that they were a family for Little Grant's sake?
Yes.
And did you go with your mother and Grant and Little Grant to Las Vegas to attend the wedding?
Yes.
Who else attended?
Paul Hutchins.
And who is Paul Hutchins?
Grant said that he was his old manager.
Were you aware that Paul Hutchins was
Objection. What do you hearsay?
Do you know anything about Paul Hutchins? Other than what you just said?
I've met him. I don't know anything else about him.
Okay, sustained.
So sometime shortly after your mother and Grant were married, they moved from New York back to North Carolina.
Yes.
You remember approximately when that was?
In May.
So within 2 weeks of getting married, they left New York and
We came to New York for Grant's birthday on April 30th, and we were celebrating little Grant's birthday while we were here too so that Laura could see him. And then we went back to New York.
Little Grant's birthday was
May 2nd.
May 2nd. And after you did that, did all of you go back to New York?
Yes.
And how long did you stay?
Maybe 2 weeks, and then they rented a car and drove here.
They being Grant
Grant, my mother, and little Grant.
Little Grant. And did they rent an apartment once they got here?
Yes.
You were still in New York, I think,
Yes.
and you stayed there until what?
End of September.
September, so we're.
Beginning of October.
September 2010.
Yes.
Now, by the middle of December of 2010, had it become apparent to you that the money that your mother had was disappearing
By when?
by the middle of December of 2010?
Yes.
And tell us what you knew at that point about how quickly the money was just going away.
I know that there was some jewelry that was pawned, like I said, and I know that my mom was using credit cards for a lot of stuff. I know that she had pretty much pulled everything out of one checking account that she had, I believe, in St. John. Believe that she closed the checking account that she had in New York.
So whatever amount of money that she had when she had met Grant in St. John's in October of 2009 was gone by December 2010.
Yeah.
She had some very valuable jewelry,
Yes.
didn't she? But tell us what she had.
There was a diamond necklace that she wore whenever she married Nikki. And it was a V-shaped necklace and it had diamonds all the way down it. I couldn't tell you how many carats it was or anything. I actually have all of the paperwork on all of her jewelry that was pawned. Her Rolex, her ring. I have copies of all the pawn tickets. One of them was for $10,000, another one's for $5,000, another one's for $2,000 or $3,000.
And Grant was taking her jewelry and pawning it, wasn't
Grant's signature is on at least one of the pawn tickets, yes.
he? So they're out of money. Now they're living off the money that they've gotten from selling her jewelry.
Yes.
And they're also running up.
Credit cards were maxed out within, I don't know if they were all maxed out in December, but I know within just a few months all the credit cards were maxed out too.
Were you aware during the time that this was happening, how much Grant was traveling?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
He would leave and go to LA for 2 weeks. He talked my mom into basically financially sponsoring him to start his record label.
And he was talking big, making big time money, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He had big time schemes, big time ideas, didn't
Yes.
he? He was going to sell iPhone cases and make $1 million.
Yeah.
He was going to do this. He was going to do that. He was going to be a rich man, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You ever see a dime of it?
No.
At some point during this period of time, did you become aware that your mother was pregnant?
Yes. That's why I moved to North Carolina from New York.
And did you come down here to stay with her?
Yes.
And approximately when would that have been?
I think she got pregnant the middle of September. So, I mean, we knew within just a couple of weeks that she was pregnant. She was really sick her first trimester of her pregnancy.
Was she living in the apartment on Bella Park Drive at that time?
Yes.
How long did you stay at the apartment on Bella Park Drive with her?
From October, November, December, January. I moved out February 7th.
And then did you get married then?
No, I didn't. I didn't get married until after my mom was arrested.
Did you move out in February?
Yes.
And
I moved into an apartment in the same complex at the other end of the complex. And I lived in that apartment for a couple of months. And then whenever things got really bad between my mom and the financial situation, I had paid my rent. My husband actually helped me pay my rent for extra month, and I told my mom that she could stay in my apartment and figure out what we were going to do until my sister was born.
Did Grant tell you that it'd be better if you moved out of the apartment, got your own apartment?
Mm-hmm.
So it was his idea to separate you from your mother.
Yes.
Who did your mother have available to turn to if you were out of the apartment?
No one. My sister, my aunt,
And
she was by telephone only.
she had telephone contact. She didn't have friends here, did she?
No, not really.
She was looking out for little Grant and General 5 days a week, right?
Yes.
She was pregnant with the little baby Lily,
Mm-hmm.
and the baby was born June 9, 2011.
Yes.
But Lily, your sister.
Yes.
Where had Grant been during the time preceding Lily's birth?
He was in Hawaii for a couple of weeks, and my mom went into false labor. She was having Braxton Hicks contractions one night, and we actually went up to the hospital and walked around until almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and they realized that she wasn't in labor, and they sent her home. And Grant immediately got on a plane. My mom bought him a plane ticket that night for him to come home the next morning from Hawaii.
Did he show up with any money?
No. Not that I know of.
Have you ever known him to make any money doing anything?
A couple $100 here and there, but by the time he paid his bar tab, it was gone.
Do you know how many nights he spent away from home in the bars?
Whenever I was living there, it was at least a couple nights a week.
And those weren't necessarily occasions when he was doing musical gigs, were they?
Not always.
He was just glad to spend the night at a bar, wasn't
Yes.
he? Describe your mother's physical condition once Lily was born. Well, look, let me back up. At some time shortly before Lily was born, you came over to visit with your mother, didn't you?
Yes.
Tell us what you found.
Her sitting in the bathroom floor, 7 or 8 months pregnant, bawling.
Crying.
Yeah.
Was she talking about leaving Grant?
She was. She said that I don't want to be a single mom at 40, and I'm scared, and there's no money. There's no way he could ever take care of me. There's no way that he could ever take care of our kids, and he doesn't need to have those boys if I'm not here.
Did she talk to you about feeling trapped?
Yes.
Did she talk to you about not having any options available to her?
Yes.
She was out of money at this point, wasn't she?
Yes.
She was looking out for the boys, was about to have a baby. Were you also aware that she was in the process of being evicted from the apartment?
Yes, I know that they were within weeks of being kicked out.
And that was the whole thing that precipitated the discussions about moving in with his parents in Kinston, wasn't it?
Yes.
There was no place left to go.
No.
They were broke. They had a new baby. They were being evicted from their apartment. They were out of options, weren't they?
Yes.
Grant had no further need to milk Amanda.
Well, sustain, I mean, that's sustain. I mean, your questions are a bit redundant. Go ahead.
Amanda didn't have anything left for Grant to get, did she?
No.
Let me ask you some things about Grant. Did you find Grant to be a charming man?
Very.
Did you find him to be a witty man?
Yes.
Charismatic?
Yes.
would you describe him as somewhat talented in the musical?
He was very talented if he could focus himself.
And when you say when he could focus himself, would you explain yourself?
He couldn't focus on anything for more than 5 minutes. He couldn't complete anything that he had started. He would start 10 different things and never finish them.
Did you find Grant to be a controlling man?
Yes,
Did you find him to be a manipulative man?
very.
Did you find him to be a deceptive man?
Yes.
Have you yourself ever seen the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley?
No.
Overall.
Of course, you have seen the movie The Stepford Wives, haven't you?
Yes.
And that's a movie in which your mother had played an extra as one of the robotic women that were being controlled by men.
Yes.
Did that description fit your mother?
As far as the looks and the personality wise of a Stepford wife, my mom was always very, very pretty, and she could fit into any situation that she was put into, any environment. She was very well adapted to any situation that you could put her into. So in that sense, yes, she depicted a Stepford wife, but no, I don't believe that she was robotically controlled by men. I think that she did what some men wanted her to do because she thought that she loved them or that she was doing what made them happy.
Once the financial situation started to become very problematic, were you aware that Grant was posting various different items on Craigslist for sale?
Yes.
Were you aware that you talked about the furniture that was on Craigslist? That was, let me ask you this: that was being sold because there was nowhere to take it once they moved to Gainesville?
That is the story that I got, yes.
There were also other things he was posting on Facebook, weren't there?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Were you aware, or did you at any point hear him or anyone else talk?
Objection. She said she didn't know.
Finish the question.
Were you aware that he had posted a MacBook Pro Apple computer for sale on Craigslist?
Yes.
And was that one that you had seen at the apartment?
Yeah, my mother bought it for him.
And it came with an Apple adapter cord, didn't it?
Most computers come with cords.
You can't charge them without a cord, can you?
Right.
And you surely can't sell one that doesn't have an adapter cord,
Right.
can you?
No.
Now, you indicated that you had been asked to come over to the apartment on the morning of July 14th to pick up the boys to take them to Monkey Joe's.
Yes.
Were you aware at that time that they had been promised that they could go to Monkey Joe's at the previous afternoon?
No, I was not aware of that.
When you got to the apartment, you picked up the boys, and while you were there, did you see Grant?
No, I never saw him until that evening.
You took the boys to Monkey Joe's and brought them back about what time? 5 o'clock?
4, 5, yeah.
You saw Grant then.
Yes, I did.
So wherever he had been, he had returned.
Objection.
Just fine.
You came back sometime later, you said, I think maybe the next week, to meet some people about buying the furniture that had been listed on Craigslist.
Yes.
And that's when you noticed the bleach stain near the door.
Yes.
Did you talk to your mother about the bleach stain?
No, she told me that she had cleaned the floor and spilt the bucket of bleach.
Well, did she actually tell you that the boys had knocked it over?
Possibly.
And did she ask you to open the windows to help air out the apartment?
Yes.
Are you aware that your mother never uses bleach to clean?
Yes.
She uses vinegar, doesn't she?
White vinegar, yes.
And the reason that she does that is because she's allergic to bleach, isn't she?
Yes, I am too.
And you can't use bleach either, can you?
No.
You use vinegar because it doesn't affect you as badly as the smell of bleach.
Yes.
Correct? You indicated, as I recall, going back to the apartment on another occasion after you had been there with the gentleman who bought the pieces of furniture.
Yes.
On that occasion, that's the occasion, is it not, when you found the manual for the skill saw?
Yes.
It was hidden in a stack of papers, wasn't
It wasn't hidden, it was just in a stack of
it?
papers.
It was a big stack, wasn't it?
Yes.
And in order for you to find it, you went through that stack very meticulously, didn't you?
Yes, I was trying to figure out what could be thrown away and what needed to be saved in case.
It wasn't immediately obvious to you that that manual was laying there, was it?
No, I went through the stack of papers and found it.
In fact, at that point, you were aware that the officers of the Raleigh Police Department had already searched the apartment on 2 previous occasions.
I don't know how many occasions they had searched it, but the apartment had been released and I was packing everything to move everything out of the apartment.
And they hadn't found the skill saw manual, had they?
Apparently no.
You're the one that found it.
Yes.
And you turned it over to the Raleigh Police Department.
Yes.
There was a song played, Broomstick Rider, that Grant recorded in New York.
Yes.
Would you, I believe the transcript of that song, or the lyrics of that song are there before you.
Yes.
Would you turn to page 3 of that document? Does Grant, in the song, talk about getting his goons, quote, goons, to do what he can't get done himself?
Yes, the end of the paragraph on the second page and the beginning of the first paragraph on the third page, yes.
Read those 2 or 3 sentences.
You must have told your attorney I have intentions on killing you. This sorta might stop me. My bullets again will get you soon. That's what the line actually says. The transcript is a little off. My bullets will get you. Get some of my goons from way back. They still owe me money. I told them you stayed at my mom's crib. Now ain't that funny?
Shay, have you had an opportunity to read a letter that Grant wrote to Amanda?
Objection. This is going to contain.
Finish the question.
Have you had an opportunity to read a letter that Grant wrote to your mother while he was confined in the Wake County Detention Center?
Yes.
Objection.
Sustained.
I asked the court to instruct the jury that they're not to take the information contained in Mr. Gaskin's question as evidence.
Sustained to the question. Disregard the question and the answer.
May I have a moment, Charlie?
Sure.
You talked about your efforts to contact your mother after she had left to visit her sister in Texas.
Yes.
Grant was constantly trying to prevent you from having contact with your mother, wasn't he?
Yes.
He didn't want you talking to her on the telephone, did he?
No.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have.
All right. Anything further?
Yeah, Shay, you did talk with your mother during that time, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you hear the phone get taken out of her hand and turned off immediately?
No.
In fact, you talked to her a couple times over the course of that weekend, didn't you?
I did, briefly.
And going back to, I guess, January of 2010 when this song was recorded, you were there and you heard this song being recorded, correct?
Yes.
Were you so terrified about the message of it that you told your mom that she needed to get out of the relationship with this guy?
No, because I genuinely thought it was his way of blowing off steam.
You're asked some questions about Tuesday, July 14th. You went over, Thursday, July 14th, when you went over the apartment and dropped the boys off after you taken them to Monkey Joe's.
Mm-hmm.
How many cars did Grant and Amanda have?
One.
Okay. And when you went over there, is it possible that Grant was in another room and that's why you didn't see him?
He was in the bathroom of the office, bedroom, nursery, studio.
Okay. You were asking questions about that SAW manual. At the time that the Raleigh Police Department went in there, this was a missing persons case, wasn't it?
Correct.
When you, I guess you found that SAW manual in that apartment after the police had finished that investigation.
Yes.
Did you know your mother and Grant to have a reciprocating SAW?
No.
Did you ever find that SAW in the apartment?
No.
You were asked back in some questions about back in January of 2010 when Grant came to New York and showed up on your doorstep, basically.
Yes.
Who bought his plane ticket?
My mom.
At that point, your mom had been in 3 prior marriages. Is that correct?
Yes.
And she'd also dated a couple men as well. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And she'd broken up with men. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And you and your mom had an agreement about a safe word, didn't you?
Yes.
And could you explain that concept to the jury?
When I was a little kid, whenever something bad happens or so that someone doesn't come get your kid from school and basically kidnap your kid, you have a safe word for your kid. If anything ever happens to me and someone else needs to come pick you up from school, they have to have the safe word. Otherwise, you do not go with them. My safe word was angel kisses because that's what freckles were. whenever I was a little kid were angel kisses, and that was the safe word.
Did you have that agreement with your mother as well?
Yes.
And so if she was ever in a time of trouble, she could utter that to you?
Yes.
You talked to her several times that weekend and the week of after July 13th, didn't you?
Yes.
You never heard that word, did you?
No.
You're asked some questions about Grant pawning Amanda's jewelry. Did Amanda also pawn her jewelry?
Yes.
Back in 2010 and early 2011 when this is happening, and I guess Amanda and Grant's financial situation is rough. Did you ever hear Amanda stressed out?
Yes.
Okay. And did she tell you that money was going down the drain?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you talk with her about it?
Not extensively. I knew that money was tight and that credit cards were getting maxed out and that there was no money coming in at all.
Okay. And at that point, your mother made the decision to marry Grant Hayes.
In 2010, she wasn't broke until December of 2010.
Okay. You were asked some questions about Amanda being Grant's financial sponsor. Grant had started making iPhone cases or whatever with his artwork on it, right?
Yes.
And those were located throughout that apartment?
Yes, there were 6 boxes of them, I think.
Okay. Did Amanda ever get a job?
No, her primary job that she had was taking care of the boys.
I guess in July of 2011, did Grant and Amanda have $25,000 to give away to somebody?
No.
When you moved from New York in with Grant and Amanda, did Grant prevent you from moving in there?
From New York to North Carolina?
Yes, ma'am.
No, he didn't.
You lived in that house with Grant and Amanda?
I did.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. Gaskins?
The safe word that you referred to was something you and your mother talked about when you were a child, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was to prevent someone who was unauthorized to pick you up from school from coming and taking you from the school.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Thank you. You may stand down. This witness is excused. Thank you. Looks it's about 10 after 1. We're going to stop until 2:15. Please be back in the jury room at 2:15. I have a hearing in another case that probably will take, I tell you what, come back at 2:20. I have a hearing at 2:15 and another case is going to last about 5 minutes. So y'all come back and make sure you're in the jury room at 2:20 and hopefully we'll be able to get to you immediately at 2:20. You haven't heard it all. Keep an open mind. Don't form or express any opinion about the guilt or innocence of the defendant or any matter in controversy. Be careful about your conduct. Follow my previous instructions. Leave your notes in your chair and see you at 2:20. Thank you very much.